authenticity. I've been getting a lot of good questions about authenticity, and that is a very, very interesting topic. So make sure you type your questions in the comments so we can address those questions. Authenticity is a concept that has been approached and interpreted and talked about and debated in various ways in with different scholars, different philosophers, different psychologists, different cultures. Um, and some of the very good interpretations, some of the very good perspective that are easier to understand in today's world would be existential authenticity, social authenticity, relational authenticity, moral authenticity, and self-actualization authenticity. So we have for this evening about 5 different types of authenticity. They're all authentic. They just refer to different aspects in different life domains, right? And what I'm finding interesting, since I'm bilingual and I'm Romanian, the first encounter, the primary encounter on authenticity when I'm with with Romanians, has to do with social authenticity, with national identity, social authenticity. To them, for me, authenticity, it's more of a self-actualization authenticity. But also for the Romanian community, it's important to keep the Romanian values, Romanian culture alive as being authentic. So when we talk about the authenticity, and I bring my angle of self-actualization authenticity, and other people bring their angle as ethnic authenticity or cultural authenticity, or moral authenticity, or whatever other authenticity, of course, there's going to be a bit of disconnect, which is okay, because then we have things to talk about. So authentic, I've been talking about the authentic self last time. And becoming your authentic self, it is an extremely important process, and it's part of you elevating your emotional intelligence. And it's quite a pleasant journey, if you ask me. So let's go over these 5 different types of authenticity so we can have a little bit of definition, because in the end, you will know when you have reached your authentic self. You will know when you are in your authentic self, when you experience yourself as your authentic self. Not what other people experience you as, but how you experience yourself as authentic self. So existential authenticity, existential authenticity talks about our individual freedom and responsibility. And placing freedom and responsibility is quite an interesting a topic in itself too, because so many are focused on freedom and they focus less on responsibility. Well, we all have responsibilities, whether we're a parent or not a parent, whether we are employed or not employed. We have responsibility. As human beings, we have responsibility. And then, of course, we seek freedom. We want to be free to be authentic. So taking ownership of the choices that you make, that would come as a responsibility. You are free to own your choices, your actions, how you behave. You have the freedom to own yourself. Mhm. I know this is a little deep, but bear with me. But you're also responsible for the way you behave, yeah, for the choices you make and the way you behave, and being true to you and living in alignment with your values and beliefs. Mhm. And the interesting things about values and beliefs is that they change over time. The values and beliefs, they do change over time. They're flexible. Values change mm, easier than beliefs. Beliefs take a little longer to change, but even beliefs, they do change over time. Social authenticity have to do with social and cultural influences on your sense of self. Now, sociologists and cultural theorists argue that authenticity is shaped by social norms, expectations, and cultural context. And being authentic in this sense means expressing oneself within the confines of socially acceptable behavior and conforming to societal expectations. Well, we better have social authenticity because we want to belong to the society and we want to behave according to respectfully, to be authentically respectful of the society and environment we live in. Why? Well, even animals do that. So, um, but we don't want to be taken down and beginning to feel overwhelmed by the societal norms and expectation and the cultural expectation of who we want to be authentically. That doesn't mean that we're going to ignore the social authenticity. No, we're just not going to get taken down by all of those expectations, because some expectation we can meet and some expectation we cannot. And then if we're too involved in meeting all of this expectation, then we're going to experience our dreaded self much more than the real and ideal self, right? Relational authenticity. The relational authenticity emphasizes the importance of authentic relationships. And it suggests that authenticity is not just an individual by itself a type of a thing, but it is expressed through genuine and sincere connection with others. And relationships are important. As humans, relationship is important to us humans, and relationship is important to animals as well, to all mammals, all living things. And being relationally authentic involves open and honest communication, a vulnerability, and a willingness to show one's true self. So, who is your true self? Yeah. And and we have moral authenticity. Moral philosophers explore authenticity in relation to moral integrity and ethical behavior. And here's another term that becomes interesting: integrity. Because moral integrity is easier for us to understand, but having an authentic self type of an integrity, that's become a whole lot of different game. Now, being morally authentic entails living in accordance to your moral principles and values, making choices that align with your ethical compass, and acting in ways that are consistent with your sense of right and wrong. Because right and wrong, there is a general universal right and wrong, but after a certain level, the right and wrong becomes different within cultures, within geographical areas, within groups, and with other people as well. So there's a lot of arguments we have over right and wrong. And a lot of relationships, they go haywire because of right and wrong. So when we get into the difficulties of right and wrong authenticity, remember that is we have a relational authenticity by which we can allow the other to be right as they believe to be right, while we keep with our morals and state our point of view, our stance, where we stand from our perspective. And then there is self-actualization authenticity, um, where self-actualization is well known from Abraham Maslow, the hierarchy of basic needs, which is such a good idea to be reminded of what the basic needs are. Um, Nowadays that we're overwhelmed with so much technology and a surplus of a supply, it's good to be reminded of these basic needs. But the concept of self-actualization associated with authenticity has to do with personal growth and realization of your potential and of you becoming the best version of yourself that you can be. That sounds fabulous and delicious, becoming the best version of yourself that you can be. And being authentically yourself in this aspect involves actively pursuing personal development, embracing your unique strengths and talents, and living a life that is aligned with your true nature. And once you do this, here comes freedom, and responsibilities are just going to be piece of cake. You're not going to be overwhelmed with the responsibility, and you're going to have freedom to to be to be all that you are. So, who do you want to be? How authentic do you want to be? I know how authentic I want to be. I'm keeping my Romanian roots authentically attached to my identity, while still embracing that which I became, that which I self actualize, and I continue to self actualize as I'm evolving or aging, right? But now you would say, yeah, you're bilingual. Yeah, you're from two places. But what about someone like Randy that's this land is the only land he's lived in, and this is the only country he's lived in? What about his authenticity? Randy, what about your authenticity? I'm keeping my Romanian roots as part of my authenticity, as part of my social authenticity, and let me put the slide back on. Okay, it was this slide. And also I am authentic in my relationships with others. I have my moral authenticity. which my moral authenticity had a lot to do, has evolved a lot because as growing up, the moral authenticity, the right and wrong, was defined by how where I lived in Romania and the way of governing Romania, the culture, the religion that was predominant in Romania at the time. But as I moved away from there and now I live here in the US of A, that has evolved. So my moral authenticity has adjusted over time. I do not necessarily believe in everything that religion said that it is a sin. Like, for example, it is a sin to eat meat on Fridays. I don't believe it is a sin anymore. Well, maybe when I'm fasting for Lent, maybe I could take that into consideration. So, just taking a very easy example. Anything you can think of, Randy, that about your authenticity as being 100% American?
You mean my identity?
Your authenticity. Your authenticity. Because for me, my authenticity, I have my Romanian roots and I'm keeping that authenticity as part of my social authenticity, right? As as my old social environment and my original cultural environment, which is Romanian. So I'm keeping that. Yeah, it's important to me. I like it. I value it. It's important to me. But that's not the only portion of my social authenticity. The other portion of the social authenticity is being an American and valuing emotional intelligence and and continuing to elevate my emotional intelligence as much as possible every single day as part of my American social authenticity. But for you, I would assume it would be different because you don't have roots in a different country. So for you, your authenticity, you wouldn't even question your authenticity. You wouldn't even think of it as that from the same perspective that I'm thinking of.
No, I wouldn't think of it as that I'm a dual citizen. Um, but there is lots of differences that may be there. There are identities. There's no such thing as an authentic, American. I mean, who is authentic? And because there's just different values and different beliefs in all parts of the world, all parts of the country. Um, that's one of the reasons we're so conflicted. I guess maybe it's one of the strengths, but it's also one of the reasons we're so conflicted. One of the problems that I have when I try and think about authenticity is who is authentic and who isn't. And not just that, but who decides who's authentic. I would dare say that for most, if you were going to be talking about somebody being authentic, that's a rare therapist that has somebody come in, has a client come in, especially a male client, come in and say, I want to pay you $150 an hour because I want to be more authentic. I don't think I'm being very authentic. I'm not an authentic American. I'm an authentic
Mm,
something else.
mm,
And that just doesn't happen. I mean, because people, maybe it's because they don't think of it that way, but they
mm,
may come in and say, um, my spouse isn't authentic, or my family isn't, or my parents are hypocrites, and I'm a young person, I'm 22, and they're full of you know what, and they're big phonies. See, in my time, in my life, back when I was younger, way back when, it was the phonies that were the inauthentic. The hippies, they were and I was never a hippie. I was not cool enough to be one, but they knew the essence and the reason for living. The people who were phonies, inauthentic, they went to work every day, they wore shirt and tie, they wore their little dresses, they came home and cooked dinner, they smoked pipes after the meal, they watched television. They were just so phony. You hear that a lot in the 50s and 60s. And um, so, is that true? Was that true? Was that right? Were they really phonies, and the authentic were the ones who remember? Don't you remember? You may not remember this, Carmen, because you may not. I'm not sure if you were in this country at this point. Drop. What was the phrase? It was Timothy Leary's phrase. Drop. Uh, drop in. Drop out. Oh, I can't remember it. Anyway, it's a phrase that signifies that to be authentic, you've got to get away from this phony capitalistic uh, plastic society. That was another big word. The plastic.
Mm-hmm.
Get away from this
Mm-hmm.
plastic society. So back then, the young people were deciding who was inauthentic. These days, I think it's a lot of mental health people and coaches and all that who just say, "Oh, I know what's authentic, and this is it." And that's always a little worrisome to me. It's a lot worrisome.
Yes, yes. I remember having a discussion with you earlier over some people claiming that they have the truth and they have the answer, and this is the way, and that's the answer. And I grew up with that kind of mentality. This one way, that's the way to do, and if you don't go about this way, then it is wrong. So I grew up like that, not just religion, but in society, in the culture I grew up, it was one way to do things, and that's that. So once I moved here, um, that it took a while to go through it and adjust, but now I have the luxury to contradict and to what contradict to not agree with anyone that says, well, this is the answer, this is the way. It might be for you, it might be this is the best approach for you because of such and such and such and such. But um, mm,
Yeah, I think it's always very dangerous when somebody says they know what's right and what, roughly speaking, what's right and what's wrong. Um, and they know the truth and they know what the truth is. Even you were saying earlier, the society has its own authenticity with laws and rules, which is true. But then we have people who think they're wrong, who think the laws are wrong, and sometimes they're right. Civil rights people, people who fought for civil rights in the 60s, 70s, they were breaking lots of laws. Um, so people who not just civil rights, but back in the 20s and 30s, what was the authentic city dweller typically doing at nights after work? They were breaking the law. They were drinking. Remember probation? Probation was nationwide, and that was the law. That was the rule. And people made it saying that we know what's best for our country. We know that these drunken men are not taking care of their families, and society's falling apart, and alcohol is evil, blah blah blah. And that's what uh, we know. That we have a right to go out with our axes and tear down bars and destroy this evil alcohol. So the law was passed, and for 18 years, I think it was. And what happened? I mean, there was more crime after that law than there was before because people were not going to stop. I guess my point is, I love that part of history, but my point is that it's just it's a very slippery slope, to use a cliche, to say, to listen to somebody say, I know what's the truth and what isn't. And uh, if anybody that's watching this, if they listen to a speaker on television, they listen to somebody who's influential, one way or the other, you're going to hear at some point they're going to say, I know what's right and what's wrong. And I know what it is, and no one else does, probably. That was how Jim Jones got 900 people, 900 men, women, and children to commit suicide because he knew the truth. And we just have this desire to want to hear that. And so, anyway, that's just my philosophical ramblings.
No, but you're bringing out a very good point because the way I grew up, I grew up in a society where there was one way to do things, and if you don't do it that way, then you're an outsider. Um, and something you mentioned earlier about the plastic society, social authenticity is important in us up. We It's not that difficult to be socially authentic if we have the other type of authenticity, but we don't have to let ourselves be overwhelmed by the social norms. Like one social norm would be that you would be successful only if you make six figures. Well, thank you very much. That is important for some people, it's not important for other people. And another social norm might be that you would be successful or authentic if you have a big family or whatever. When it comes to social norms and expectations, let's keep that to the laws in the countries that we live in, and we ought to respect the law because, you know, breaking the law, when you break the law, nobody's going to ask you, did you know or did you not know about it? You're not going to be excused because you didn't know what the laws are. The laws are the laws and are there for a reason. And even the laws continue to evolve and they continue to government makes new laws and add laws and as as evolving. But relational authenticity, relational authenticity has to do with your connection, having a sincere connection with others. And here comes the plastic society you mentioned earlier, because in this type of plastic society, a relationship might be transactionally based. I'm going to be your friend and I'm going to be nice to you if there is a transaction involved. Whether the transaction involves monetary exchange or goods or services or something else, the authenticity of your own authentic self can be altered by such transactional um, expectations. And if we don't like it, we don't have to be in it. Now, at home, there, there, well, I don't want to go too deep into it, but at home, there is a good degree of transactionality because there is a parent and a child. There is a provider and a receiver. There is a giver and a receiver. And we ought to create some sort of balance with that, or at least define, good expectations over the role and define the roles and be flexible with that. Um, Yet the most touched upon of authenticity refers to the self actualization authenticity. Who are you? Who do you want to be? And what is the best version of yourself that you want to be? That is that is the most important that 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 comes to mind to most people, because there's all kinds of authentic this, authentic language, authentic accent, authentic pronunciation, authentic dialect, authentic something something. And someone that hears me speak, they can figure out that I'm from Europe, most likely Eastern Europe. A lot of people recognize that. When you speak, most people will be able to recognize that you're from the um, south uh, um, of North America. There is some authenticity to it, but it's that the authentic self, well, that's part of it. It's that the best version of who I want to be. Well, for me, yeah, I'm comfortable with my accent. I like my accent. I think it's cute and it's different and it adds something to it. I like your accent. You know, um, other people look down on it. That's fine. That's their values. Why is emotional intelligence so important nowadays? Emotional intelligence is it's very important nowadays in attaining that authentic self, because it provides you with skills and it provides you with a larger understanding, and it provides you with not necessarily definition but somewhat good enough explanation. Like we just went over the 5 different types of authenticities. There can be more than 5, but now that we are aware of it and we have an understanding, then we go, oh, then I think I'm a bit more authentic than what I thought I was. Or I'm happy with my authenticity and I'm not going to let other people take me down with their criticism. Yeah. So, and that's good because it adds freedom to you. You're not constrained with the societal norms. And do you have to be, well, yeah, you ought to respect the law and not to respect common law and decency, and respect it's there. You just, if there's no respect, then what is it? um, but then be who you want to be, the best authentic version of who you are. And emotional intelligence comes with a lot of skills, and it's and also a lot of validation that what you've been doing right all of your life. Because how many years ago only the IQ was so highly valued? You have to have a high IQ and have to have this kind of title in a company to be, I'm not going to say the next words. But now here comes emotional intelligence and says, well, high IQ is very important, but it doesn't give you a right to be an condescending human being. That doesn't give you the right to think that you're better than others. You have more studies, you have different titles, you have different responsibilities, but being a better person than other, I don't think so. And being better than other has been established long ago. That's not what us humans are about. Carl Jung clearly established that, and he's the father of analytical psychology, right? So there is no such thing as being better than others. at the very deep core of us. Yet, feeling that others are better than us, or because of whatever norms of expectations and desires and values, and we might be in a position when we feel that we're not good enough. All right. So then when we get that we're not good enough, then what? How do we know how to be good enough? Well, here's emotional intelligence that's going to help you that. Because I touched up on this last time that not everybody needs psychotherapy if something is troubling them. And teaching emotional intelligence doesn't mean the teaching of the emotional intelligence is not the same as practicing psychology, as I've been accused of, which I can only smile at it. Um, for me, I can smile at it, but then take this accusation and spread it over to other people, it's detrimental and damaging to them, because everybody can benefit from emotional intelligence, and everybody can elevate their emotional intelligence a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more to create more ease in their life, to arrive to the self actualization, authenticity, to become to the best version of who they want to be, and be happy with who they are, and be more than enough, right? So when you go about and tell people anything that takes away from, discourages them from having access to learning more about how they can become more emotionally intelligent, you take that away from them, that's a disservice. Wouldn't that be a disservice?
Uh, yeah, and I think the one takeaway that people can have from this is because when you say, my self awareness and am I uh, am I happy with who I am, kind of thing. One of the things I believe that thinking about authenticity in my limited mind, but thinking about it, one of the things that it could help just regularly on a day-to-day basis is um, to understand what's important to you. What are your values? What do you think is right and wrong, more or less? What do you think is right in the world? What do you think your purpose is for being here? What are you doing that you think contributes? And what are you doing that takes away? And are you living that life? There was a good YouTube video I saw a couple of years ago where this self-help coach said something. I mean, I'm not big into self-help necessarily, but anyway, she made an interesting point that to for the next day or two, she said, write down everything you do, just on a little neat little notepad, a little notebook like this, and just write down everything you do, and for 24 hours. And she said, then take it, then the next day look at it. That's what you value in life. Your time, how you spend your time, is what you value. Whether you, because all of us are going to say, well, yeah, I value good works, and I think we should get along, and everybody needs to love each other, and value neighborhoods. And I look at if I did that, and looked at my list, what would I be valuing? I'd be valuing the internet, Facebook. I hate to say that, but that's true. Facebook. Um, um, I'd be valuing the FBI's on television. I'd be valuing NPR, That's what if I'm not careful, and I have to be careful, then my time, where how I spend my time is what my value is. I think that my value is to make sure I've kept up with all the episodes of the FBI International, and it's an eye opener. So one of the things that I think people could take away from this and talking about authenticity is what what do I value? What matters to me, and am I living that life? And if I am, then probably authentic. If I'm not, then I'm probably not authentic. That has its holes, because a lot of people can be very authentic and live in their lives and be very detrimental to society. But generally speaking, for people such as you and me, if we look at life that way, if we look at it, then we can determine what is important to us, what matters, and how do we want our life, our precious life, to be lived. And the last thing I'll say is just a reminder: is there are a lot of reminders we miss every day, but life is very precious. It's very fragile, very precious. And number two, we, for whatever reason, will never know in this life. Hopefully, God will tell us whenever we die, because I'd love to know. But we were born extremely blessed in this world, this country. It only takes a little plane flight for 2, 3 hours to go into abject poverty, where people, not just a few hundred, but millions and millions, don't know where they're going to eat the next day. And I get in my car and drive down to Target. And so, anyway, my point being is that we whatever gave us life and put us here, gave us many blessings. And if we want to use it watching television, that's our business. But I have to be careful, because that's really truly not what my value is. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, yeah, yes, it does. And you bring up such a good point. And then um, someone just sent me a message and they said, "Well, I have to go to work because I have to pay the bills. Doesn't mean that I value it." And it's like, well,
I'm not,
yeah,
can I just interrupt? I'm sorry, Carmen. Can I just
yeah,
interrupt you just on that, because I have something to say about that.
yeah.
That's here's how a person can change how they value what they see. I've got to go to work because I've got to pay the bills. Think of it that way. Now think of it this way: I get to go to work. I get to be able to pay my bills. Work is important. Paying my bills is important. I get to do that every day. Just a point. Thank you for letting me interrupt.
Yes, yes, yes. And you made a very good point, because some people might dread going to work because they don't get along with their boss, or they have to deal with a lot of pressures and deadlines. But you're right, they get to go to work, they get to pay their bills. Other people don't get to do that. And um, how are you going to make this more pleasant to yourself? Well, emotional intelligence. Again, we're going to go to emotional intelligence again. Why? Because it helps with so many different things. And a while back, emotional intelligence started to take off here in the United States back in 1990, and it started to take off more in the workplace environment. Why? Because it's needed, because a lot of this high IQ people with high IQ and big titles, um, it wasn't acceptable anymore for them to be so condescending to others. So emotional intelligence had an easier entrance into the workplace as it is to the lifestyle. But emotional intelligence, it's not limited to the workplace at all. Emotional intelligence teaches lots about personal relationships, about parenting and family life, about mental and emotional well-being, um, social awareness, community, uh, health and wellness, conflict resolution, conflict resolution, the right and wrong type of a resolution, personal growth and self-discovery. I mean, is there something emotional intelligence is not going to help you with? I don't think so. Because if all if the only skill out of emotional intelligence you get to improve is empathy, the ability to put yourself in the other shoes. Whenever the most difficulties we have in life has to do with relationships. So when we have difficulties in a relationship, whether it's at work or at home or with neighbors or whatever, if you are put yourself in their shoes and try to understand where they come from, everything else becomes easier. Everything else becomes easier. There will be no conflict. Your well-being will be better. Your family life will your relationship will be better. Family, parenting, your mental emotional well-being, everything will be better. Then even you with only with that skill you can even trace back to your moral authenticity. Yeah, you don't have to agree with the other person all the time. I mean, it can they it's okay for them to have different values and to have different slightly different morals. And I'm not talking about the morals where it's just against the law and against human nature, and that's not what I'm talking about. But right and wrong, let's look at putting the toilet seat down. That is a very important thing for some people. If you have kitty cats in a home or puppy dogs, you don't want them drinking from the toilet. Or some people let them, but some people don't. Yeah. And kitty cats don't like to get in the water. And it's for some people it's very important to put the toilet seat down. Some people's like, well, why do you need it down? Because I need it up. Well, okay, you need it up, you need it down. Now, how are we going to do it? Let's come to an agreement and let's not argue about it. This is this is how in this household, this is how we're gonna go about the toilet seat, and that's the end of the discussion. We're going to respect that because this is our household and this is how we do things in this household. Problem solved. Problem solved. Emotional intelligence. You want to add something to it?
Uh, yeah, I mean, I think the thing that might be helpful that comes to mind is what do we value? Not well, like you said, value in this household, but also what do we value as a family unit? And a lot of times, there's a lot of disagreement about that, about what's right and what's wrong. Do I value independent? Do I? Is it okay for me to give my kid $100 behind my spouse's back because they're broke and they may not have a job and I don't know what they do all day long and they smell funny when they get home, but I don't want my spouse to get upset, so I'm gonna give them a few. So anyway, just it's just what do we value in the family? That's one thing a family therapist helps people do,
Yes.
believe it or not.
Hmm. Yeah. And you'd be surprised, maybe not you, but a lot of people would be surprised to find out that we're not aware of our values necessarily. And we have values what we don't necessarily spend a lot of time on it, but there's some it things are very important to us. And oftentimes when we have conflicts, when there is conflict, our own values, our beliefs might be not congruent with our values, or our values might not be congruent with someone else's beliefs. So if we go to this diagram over here, that hopefully we can clearly see, the values and the beliefs, they sit at the very bottom, at the very deepest layer of everyone's internal representation of reality. What we believe to be true creates our reality. What we value creates our reality. That's what's real for us. In addition, in addition to everything else that comes after. So becoming the beliefs were kind of easier aware of our beliefs that we believe to exist or not exist, to be true or not to be true, to be right or wrong. We're kind of more it's easier to identify that. But the values, when something bothers us really, really bad, it's because of a value. Well, it's going to be a belief too, but it's going to be a value, is going to be involved in there. And instead of going and blaming someone for what bothers us, I think it would be more beneficial and healthier and more emotionally intelligent to figure out which value was it disturbed. Um, which value was it disturbed, and what if you go about it without blaming? There is so much blame going around for what happens in life, for what happens. Everybody blames somebody. The governments are doing a bad job. The, the landlords are doing a bad job. The CEOs of the companies doing the bad job. The people that run the stores are doing a bad job. People that repair the roads are doing a bad job. The gasoline is too high and people are doing, the prices on gasoline are so high. There's constant blame over what goes wrong. And I want to bring people back to when we were in school and we learned how to go about life. We had homeworks to do, and there was a right way to do homework and a wrong way to do homework. And when you didn't do the homework right, you were blamed for it in a form of low grade. That is valid for when you go to school and you need to pass exam and you need to go to get a job eventually, to become a responsible adult. That type of evaluation we continue to carry in life, later in life as adults, and we keep on blaming others for what goes wrong instead of going with empowerment. So, what if we empower? What if, in the heat of the moment, someone that blames is just so tired after a hard day of work, being stuck in traffic, weather being miserable, internet breaking down, the laptop breaking down, technology now, whatever reasons. Yeah. What if we go with empowerment? What if we can just say, is there something I can do? I hear you. Not I agree with you. I hear you. People don't even hear each other. They just talk and listen to the other to make a pause so they can interject to to give their input to what the other one was saying, not necessarily hearing what the others are saying. Because if you listen, you can actually hear that what the other is saying is actually, oh yeah, it's right along my values. It's right along my values. My beliefs, but it's right around my values, right? And empowerment can go such a long way, and is going to bring you to your authentic self, quicker, an accelerated way into realizing the self, yourself, actualization, authentic self. And you can embrace the power that you have to control your own circumstances. And yeah, it's going to be easier to blame others. And then sometimes, no, let's choose not to blame. Let's just, go to empathy. And then when you go to empathy, you put yourself in their shoes. Someone is going through some sort of difficulty. Um, so there's no need to blame them all the time. Why we don't need to constantly blame? And instead of pointing fingers, let's look at a solution. And one solution would be just hear what the other are saying, because people communicate so much, not necessarily with the words they use, although the words are very important, but you can always hear things in between the words, in the things that they're not saying, and you might just have a solution at the tip of your fingers. Like you can make things, you can de-stress, decompress the situation, and it's a wonderful thing to be able to do that. Everybody's going to be happy. How can I help? Sometimes people say, well, I don't need any help. Okay, let people be upset a little bit. And I said, can I help in any way? Well, I don't know. Let me think about it. Let them think about it, right? Instead of going to argue, well, what you're saying is not right. This is wrong. This is wrong. That's not right. That, blah, 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 blah. Huh? How can I help? I don't need your help. I can do this on my own. Good. Go ahead and do it on your own. Can I help in any way? Well, I don't know. Let me think about maybe. Right. So give them a glass of water. Give them a glass of cold water, so people can calm down. It's impossible not to be stressed. It's impossible not to snap throughout the day. Well, if people are doing this intentionally, and if they're condescending and they're mean and they're being intentionally putting you down all the time and all the time, well, that's a completely different story. But most of the time, they don't. Most of the time, it's just daily life stress. So you could just say, is there a way that I can help by any chance? Or how can I help? And if some people might get triggered by, well, I can do this on my own. I don't need your help. They all of a sudden they might feel incompetent if you ask them. No, no, no. It's not about incompetence. It's about me saying something emotionally intelligent to help you to decompress a little bit, and then let's look at the situation. Let's talk about it and let's see what needs to be done, because something needs to be done. Sometimes the only thing that needs to be done is the person venting. Let them vent. Let it get out of them, and then maybe make an understanding. Have When in a family situation, it's good to communicate about how you want to vent and what do you need when you vent. And maybe sometimes you can just say, I'm venting now, and you can just go about what the boss did at work, you didn't like, and you're venting, and the other one it's listening to you to some degree, or at least they seem that they're listening to you, but it's not important. The important fact is that you're venting and you have someone to vent with. Hallelujah. Right? Because our strength, your strength, everybody's strength lies in the ability to rise above the challenges with resilience and grace. We have resilience. We have it. We are not rigid. Only our beliefs can be rigid, but even beliefs can change. Our values can be rigid in a particular moment in time, but even that can be adjusted. emotional intelligence. If all you do is empathy, you've gone a long way. You're never gonna argue with anybody. Not unless they're even okay, 99% of the time, you're not gonna argue with anybody if you do empathy out of emotional intelligence. And believing in yourself, emotional intelligence is so going to help you believe in yourself, to trust in your journey, to trust that you're doing the right thing, that you do what you want to do, the way you want to do it, to add, to contribute to society, to provide a good service, to be of help to your human beings, to add to the fabric of society, to 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 do it in your way, the way it's good for you, and in a way that enriches and uplifts others. And when you do that, you don't do anything wrong. You don't do anything wrong. Just don't beat on other people that other people are doing something wrong. When someone is doing that, they have a large amount of insecurity about who they are, where they are in life. But if you shift more into your authentic self, those insecurities are going to begin to just disappear and wash away, and do what you do with love, do what you love what you do, uplift, empower others, be mindful, have empathy, and be happy and be authentic. You want to add something, Randy?
No, I mean, I think that's a good summary of it, actually. Um, yeah, some good takeaways.
All right. So, blaming has no positive effect at all, nor does trying to persuade the others using all kinds of reasons and arguments. No blame, no reasoning, no argument. Believe in yourself, trust your journey, embrace the freedom that comes from taking responsibility. Responsibilities come before freedom. You embrace the freedom from taking responsibilities, and then you have a power to create a bright future and your authentic self, and become the best version that you wish to be. So who do you want to become? Who do you wish to be? Until next time, thank you from Carmen and from Randy, and we'll see you